aggressive. I saw a lot of laughing faces. My body, head, and soul. Many miles away, I could start a perfect story. I found myself and find no glory. This deceptive world, giving me the sign, giving me the sign. Giving me the sign, giving me the sign.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sci-Fi Queens podcast, where we explore the female characters in science fiction television shows, movies, books, game, arts, anywhere female characters are depicted. If you are new to our channel, we welcome you and we ask that you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you know when our next episode will be, and that really will help our channel grow. I am your host, Nita, and joining me tonight is my co-host, my Queen of Darkness, Sarah, and our special guest, Nicole. Better Queen's cousin. Watch out now. She always got my six. Tonight we're going to be talking about sci-fi classic movie, The Fifth Element. So before we get into it, let's just talk. See how everybody's doing. Do a little check-in. Nicole, what's going on? What's happening?
No, good. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to talk about this movie. I had never seen it before, heard of it growing up. This was my first time watching it, and so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, if you guys don't remember, Nicole is new to the sci-fi game. She is getting into sci-fi like deep. We watching the Orville right now. Okay.
Oh, you dragging her in, aren't you?
Deep. She's getting deep. She almost read Star Trek. She almost read it. She
almost
recognized one of the Orville characters as a Star Trek character. I mean, she's getting there. She's getting there. You know,
that's good.
We converting her brain into the movement. You know,
well, you know, a lot of what I see is that sometimes people just kind of like, oh, sci-fi, that's for nerds. But then, like, when you actually like watch it or like ease into it, it's like, wait a minute, this is actually pretty good. Like, wait, what?
No, absolutely.
And one thing you have to say, if it's for nerds, nerds change the world. All the technology we have is because there was a kid watching a sci-fi 20, 30 years ago, and he or she was so smart that they decided to use that intelligence and try to recreate that what they saw on TV or in a movie, and they made it happen. So you know what?
We were talking about that the other day too, Nita, right?
We sure was. And we're definitely going to get into that tonight. I know normally I put up some pictures of characters, but we're going to do things a little different. It has been disgusting hot in New York City, and I've been doing a lot of hours, and I had an ear infection, I had drama, so you know, I still have the energy for it this week.
Yep.
Taking good care of me though. She's taking good care of me.
That's good.
It was so bad that if it didn't unclog by today, I might have had to cancel. It was so clogged. It was bad.
Wow.
But I'm really grateful that I'm feeling much better. But let's just take a quick peek here of this picture. This movie brought in some actors that we today know as very famous actors. But at the time, were really, other than Bruce Willis, he was really about the only really super famous actor on this movie. And Bruce Willis played Corbin Dallas, Mila Jovovich as
Jovovich. Yep.
Jovovich? Okay, thank you. Chris Tucker as Ruby Road. Come on now. Who thought he would play a character like that, right?
Oh, God. I loved him.
Home. I love it. And
I mean, I love them all.
Yeah, and Tommy Lister Jr. as President Lindbergh.
And our man Gary Oldman as Zorg. Yeah, he's so surprised. He's one of those. Wait, is that Gary Oldman? No way, because that was like right after. I think this came out right after, like around Dracula. Like they were like, because it was such a turn from
Yes.
that spooky dark to like this nerdy weird evil. Like what?
But Gary Oldman had a moment there in the 90s also where he was like you
Oh
said
yeah.
Bruce Willis, but Gary Oldman was like giving
Hmm.
like he was up there, because he
Yep.
was in The Professional, he
Yep.
was in quite a few other movies in the 90s. He
Now,
was
I do
he
Yes.
was the
have to
man.
say though, Nicole, when she saw the president, she was like,
I was gonna say that.
"Oh, him!" Like she flipped out. We had to pause it. She flipped out. So, Nicole, let's start with you. And
Okay.
we normally talk about the female characters, but there's only really one main focus lead.
Yeah.
We'll get to her, but
Yeah.
let's talk about your when you saw someone new to sci-fi, saw someone you recognized playing the president of the
Well,
president of the
I
Earth
think my shock at
Federated areas.
Federal.
I
Yeah. Federated areas. Yes.
yeah
Go ahead.
I I think my shock at seeing Lester in that role was more of wait, because I know him from Friday, right?
Hmm.
From next Friday, the Friday franchise, and
I
so
love
I
it.
was like, wait, is that no? And I had to Google real quick, like she said I did. I paused it, had to Google. I was like because, and it was cool to see him in a pseudo serious lead. Like we always like he was in he was always the headbanger, right? Like he was bashing heads whatever he did. He
Tough
did a
guy.
movie with like
Like a thug.
Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan also, like, where he played Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Zeus. I forget what movie it was with Hulk Hogan. And he was always like this tough guy, like breaking heads, and so it was cool to see him um in another light, and not just in another light, but just as a position of power. Like he was president.
Right.
He
And
was
that was
making them.
and I thought that was, I mean, at the time you don't even think anything about it. You're like, oh, okay, it's the president of the Federated Areas, but like we hadn't even had Obama wasn't even a dream yet. So I mean,
Yes, I
that
Yes.
didn't
was
even think
very
about
progressive for
that.
the time.
Exactly, because this movie
Yes.
was filmed not and was released in 1997.
Yep.
So the idea of a black president wasn't something that we as a country thought we were ready. We've been ready. There's no need to be ready for a black president or a female
Mhm.
president. It's just a president. It's an American, right?
Yep.
But we all had this back then, this mentality of we need to be ready for that, and we really
Hmm.
didn't. And here he is, someone who was hilariously funny in Friday, playing a pretty serious role. I think that this was a kind of a sci-fi comedy because it was very
Hmm.
funny, but his portion, his scenes were serious. Like there was a
Hmm.
serious threat, and he was making serious decisions, and
Mhm.
he really gave it his all. I think he did a fantastic performance. I honestly will give him a 5 out of 5 on
Hmm.
his performance. I thought he was pretty good. Don't give me attitude, Nicole. Why is it that you can't tell me a brother didn't get a 5 out of 5?
No, I like the role was awesome, but if we're talking just acting, like it sounded like he was
His acting,
reading.
his acting.
It sounded like he was reading his line, like
Like from a cue card. Yeah, like behind the
yes,
camera.
yeah, like we
But
cannot
but
go there. Oh no, like
So just
but that might have also
people
been
by a bunch of Philistines, okay?
but but that might have been part of the whole, because they were making fun of a lot of things. That
That's
might have been
true.
part of the
I didn't
shtick,
think
and that
about
might have
that.
been part of his character because he is the president, so he has to like read a cue card, like how we have
I
teleprompters
didn't think
now.
about that. Yeah.
That like, oh well, somebody's
Always
always
talking,
telling him what to do. So
always talking smack and never thinking it through. That's why she's the queen of darkness, because she goes to dark places.
I'll think about it, man.
But it's true. I mean, but I think he did a really good job with the because he was, surrounded by people trying to give him guidance, and oh, you must
Mhm.
make this, and they were all very military kind of people, and he was trying to make decisions on a non-military basis with a bunch of military people, which can be very challenging,
Well,
because
that's like
those people are trained to
I
think a certain way.
well, that's like I mean, I just watched it again. I watch it all the time. But I mean, I think I even still have my VHS. I mean, that's how much I watch it. Um,
Oh my God, you went
yeah.
old school, girl.
Oh yeah. No, I watched it. It wasn't. I watched it. It was on Peacock when I pulled it up today. But I watched it again today, and one of the things that I hadn't noticed before was that when the priest when Vito Cornelius stands up and talks to the president, and like he's like, "You got 30 seconds," and he says his spiel and says what's going on, and we're like, "Well, we have to attack and all this," and then they send the ship sends a probe and all that. And he's like, well, bad things start happening. He's like, I have doubts. And then the ship commanders, I don't, fire. And then they all like, but like, at least he tried to be diplomatic about it instead of just like, let's attack. I mean, that's another page for his character in the right column is all I was saying.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I think that this movie, I would classify it sort of like a sci-fi comedy,
Hmm.
because there were so many funny areas,
Oh yeah.
and Mila as Lilo was
Hmm.
hilarious. I mean, the action in this
Hmm.
movie was phenomenal. Um,
Did Did you know? I have an interesting fact for you, and I'm not sure if you know this, but did you know that because she speaks like five or more languages, she and the director actually made up the divine language, and then by
no.
the end of filming, they were holding actual conversations in this made up language that she speaks because she had to practice with somebody so she could say it on screen. And and with the right rhythm and cadence for
Right.
actual speech, but they actually made up a language. Isn't
Well,
that crazy?
That's awesome.
sci-fi is known to do that because Star
Yeah,
Trek created
yeah,
an entire Klingon language
right.
with history and grammar and alphabet and syntax and
Yeah, you
verbs
can
and
you
nouns
can
and
even learn
all of that
Klingon on
stuff.
Duolingo. Yeah,
Yes, you can. You
Can
can.
yeah,
you?
yes,
I
Yes,
didn't know
I'm
that.
lying. I'm totally
yes,
good for Klingon.
yes.
Absolutely. And the creative way that Star Wars portrayed the Wookiee language was also really interesting because
Yeah.
whenever he was like, oh, doing the Wookiee sound, that's just like a bunch of sound to us. But when they were filming,
Filming it, yeah,
actually talk.
yeah. He actually
They
spoke.
not full concept. We would just talk so that the actors can pull and connect and act, and then they would um,
Dub over it.
dub
Yeah,
over the Wookiee sounds, but he had to sound every time he says something, he had to sound the same way. So it wasn't just some random noise. If he was trying to say the door's over there, that sentence had to be the same sound
Same all
every
the time.
time.
yeah.
Because
Mhm.
one thing you got to say about sci-fi fans, we notice all of the
We
big
nitpick.
we nitpick. We the worst. We nitpick. We absolutely and I think that that's something that science fi can it's a contribution to media, and because it
Hmm.
has opened opportunities for people. There are people who are experts in the Klingon language that when Star Trek is being filmed, excuse me, and if they're speaking Klingon, there's someone that's teaching the actors how to say the
With the
words
right
properly.
inflections and the
Mm.
right, and just like they would have a regular language coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we know someone on TikTok, the Klingon pop
Uh,
queen.
yeah,
She
she's amazing.
actually sings popular pop songs in Klingon.
Klingon with the right
That is
Gets
inflections and everything.
funny.
invited to
That is
perform.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yes, she gets invited to perform in full Klingon, like "Love Is a Battlefield" and all of these popular
Yeah.
songs, but in
Hmm.
Klingon. She's even gotten invited to weddings. I mean, she's pretty. She has a beautiful
And
voice.
she, I know that she consults to people
Yeah,
on
she
Duolingo
consults
too.
with She consulted with, I think, Lower Deck. Lower
Yeah,
Deck, I believe she might have consulted with another show, but I'm not 100%.
yeah, and then I know that
Lower
she's
Deck.
helped with some of the Duolingo lessons too, the
Exactly.
speaking parts and stuff.
And that's job opportunity right there. That's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Female empowerment, go girl. I love her. She's
All
fantastic.
Yep.
from sci-fi. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, all from sci-fi.
And
And
that's from a
plus, she
fandom. That's from fan.
yes,
Just from being a fan, she's
Right.
created an opportunity for herself, and it's just amazing. So,
yes,
anyways,
absolutely. And
yep.
it's something that, science fiction is actually well known for, is creating these languages and teaching the actors how to pronounce things correctly. And really, it's very, very difficult. Like, Discovery got a lot of flack, but it was considered the best of all the Star Trek when it came to speaking Klingon. Those actors did so
Hmm.
well that they were the number one in pronunciation and everything. And it is not an easy language.
No.
It is not. It's rough. It's tough. And a
Yep.
lot of inflections, and yeah, and it creates those opportunities.
Yep.
But yeah, it does not surprise me that she had a hand on that, because it
Yep.
really did it sounded a little bit like Latin and Russian at the same
Yeah,
time.
it was well, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
and I believe she's Ukrainian, and it's
Mm-hmm.
she grew
I,
up with all these
I can see that.
blended all these blended languages, and then um having she instead of just the like how in Star Trek, the original Star Trek, they just make up something and say, here, say this, no, he actually the director actually consulted with her to create this language and make it and move it forward so that she
Yeah,
had a part in making the movie. And and then I think that also, because it showed the range that she had, that of the different languages and all that, that brought her to the forefront, and brought and then her her role in action, that she could be an action star instead of just a
yeah,
pretty
Mm-hmm.
face. And
exactly.
then I think she got the Resident Evil after that. I think
Yeah, it was shortly after
because
that.
then
Mm-hmm.
that was
She
off
was
and running,
phenomenal.
there she goes.
She was
Yeah,
phenomenal in
amazing.
Resident Evil. Now let's
Yep.
talk about her outfit. We
Yeah,
can't talk about how great she was without doing a little criticism on the
the
choice
thermal
of
bandages. Oh
outfit.
my.
They were just bandages. Like, how uncomfortable she must have felt
Right. It was
having
basically tape.
worn,
Yeah.
and it looked like tape.
Well, and then, but I do believe that she was a model before that, so she
She
probably was
was.
comfortable, in her, in her own skin, and in that, those kind of situations. And it wasn't. I mean, it
But this
was,
might have been a
it's like
little
a
different
quarter of the
because there were
movie.
action scenes with that tape.
Yeah.
I love when she just fell right into his.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A fair just dropped in my lap. Yeah, and then that comedy. It kind of. I don't. I'm not so sure. Like, really, but it is like you said, it is a sci-fi comedy. I mean, it's an action adventure. I mean, there's a story and all that, but like, there's so many things that are just hilarious and just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, Nicole and I this week were talking about the technology
Hmm.
within science fiction, and how some of the past science fiction's technology, where we've seen a lot of it now, especially the stuff in Star Trek,
Uh,
even way back to the original series, from the communicator flip. You got the flip phone, right? You got
yep.
a lot of different technologies from there, not just
And
that, but
wearable tech like Bluetooth. Hey, our Bluetooth
Yeah.
headphones are
Yeah.
communicators now, and
yeah. And what technology, Nicole, you think kind of stood out for you within this movie?
Um. Oh. Um. I would say like the I think when he was trying to do the he was getting something to eat, and I think it was like a microwave, and it was like
Oh
super
yeah, when
fast.
she had the
And
plate of
it was
chicken.
Pellets.
It was a pill.
Yes.
She threw it in the microwave on a plate, and then pulled out
yeah,
a whole like 7 course roast chicken
Chicken.
meal.
exactly.
Chicken,
And it's like
chicken.
even then we had microwaves, so microwaves weren't like, but they weren't so widely used, and then it wasn't
It was just
it,
to nuke things up, heat things up.
yeah, it was just
Nowadays,
now we make
it's a meal.
things.
So that was kind of like almost a replicator and or a
Yes.
reconstitutor and a microwave because like it heated it, but it also, it brought it back from
Right,
whatever pill size pill
right,
form it was.
About it. Think about it. The
Yeah,
popcorn. It's just a little tiny kernel, right? You don't think about it because it's in a bag, right?
yeah,
But you put the bag in the microwave, and what happens after a minute and a half? You've got
yeah,
a bag full of popcorn
yeah,
yep,
that you can eat. And
yeah.
back then, uh, that was something that was just beginning. It's the microwave popcorn
It
because
was
before that it was on the stove top and you had the
or in
chicken
yeah,
the
where you
air
had
poppers.
to shake
Yep,
it.
yeah,
yeah.
shaky, 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 or an air
I used
popper.
to
Yeah,
love that. Yeah,
I used to love
but
that
it was that, and even in the car. So we're not at flying cars yet, but we're close, right? um, but like there was like they were talking like the Bluetooth, like he was like, "Where are you at?" Like his
yeah,
boss called them, and like the GPS, like,
too.
"Oh, you're
and
going the
like
wrong way."
having to put his license into the car to even drive to activate the
Uber,
car.
it made
Yeah,
me think of Uber. That
yeah,
scene where he's got his car made me
yeah,
think of Uber because that's how he got his passengers, right?
yeah,
Through this method of, oh, okay, these other passengers, I gotta go get this. It's
yeah.
kind of like Uber
It was a prequel to Uber. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
too.
before its time. They were seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that that's really important to note that, science fiction has not just brought entertainment, but has brought innovative ideas to the table, you know,
Mhm.
um, in science and medicine, because there was a time when, you got chickenpox, you died, you know,
Yeah.
polio, you died. But then what
Yep.
happens? You get vaccines, you get needles. That's,
Right.
that's science. Those things are science.
Hmm.
And all of those things are really, where people look at when they're writing sci-fi books or writing a comic or writing a script for a screenplay or a movie. They look to these things and they look to how they think the future is going to look. Gene
Mhm.
Roddenberry was a humanist, so his vision of humanity was about peace,
A
success,
utopia. Yep.
war, a utopia. No one was hungry because we had, replicators and you could replicate. And, the directors and writers of Star Wars had a different mentality in mind. Everyone in sci-fi has their own vision of the future, which I think it's
Hmm.
important.
But
Well,
we
and
were
then like,
talking. Oh,
go
sorry. Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, Lisa, you and I were also talking about like the demolition man, like
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
technology that's in most of that technology we have
Hmm.
currently.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
from like I just hope they don't ever charge me for cursing in public because I go broke. However,
Yeah.
however, from the art, the virtual reality,
Yeah. The
the
VR headsets and
yeah, and the TVs on the wall, and like we have all of that now.
hmm
Absolutely. We absolutely do. And VR is a big thing. It's
Mhm.
definitely the next level in gaming. Anyone who's
Mhm.
into gaming will tell you that's
well,
where
not even
gaming
just
is
gaming,
going.
but like I saw a thing where you can where they're taking doctors and using VR so they can practice on virtual patients
Yes.
so that they can learn on virtual anatomy so they're not
Yes.
hurting people so they can actually learn to do complex procedures and stuff. And that's
Which
all
is
VR.
kind of Star Trekky if you think about it, because
Right.
even in Star Trek, the original series, no one was ever cut open. That was
Yeah.
antiquated.
Yeah.
But they would they would perform surgery with, they would put something over the body, and they were doing it like virtually, but they were
Yeah.
fixing the inside of that anatomy.
Yeah.
But let's even talk about, like, you brought up Orville. We've been watching Orville, and
Yes.
you said they had it in Star Trek where they, like, the medical team have the scanner and they could tell you by
Mhm.
scanning what's wrong with you.
Hmm.
Okay, we're not quite there yet, but we have thermometers now that you just bought one for us. Like, there's a thermometer now that you don't have to put in any orifices. You literally scan your forehead. You don't
Yeah, it
even have
almost
to
looks like
touch a
one
scanning
of
gun.
one of Beverly's tools. They
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And being the oldest person in this group, I can tell you with all certainty that all Gen Xers are happy. They no longer have to give the booty to get a thermometer to temperature
I
check.
remember. I remember
Yeah,
doing
I know. I
that.
Oh,
I
remember.
remember doing that
Yeah.
as a baby. I remember doing
and
that
for
as a
those,
child. Yes,
for
And
you
yes.
guys don't know, thermometers weren't always oral. There was only one way to do it, and it was uncomfortable, and
yeah.
there was just no other way, and it really progressed to now just scanning your forehead. You
Yeah,
know,
Mhm.
it's like I go to I went to I think I took Leah. Oh no, I went to one of my doctors this week. I went on Monday, and in the lobby of their building, they have they came to be with COVID, but they have a scanner that's a monitor, and it's got a temperature scanner, and you just like you walk in front of it, and like you don't even have to stop. But if you're too hot or whatever, it'll set off an alarm. I mean,
Oh
instant.
wow.
But if you want to stop and get checked, it'll tell you what your current temperature is. But it just passes like it's passive. You just walk by it and it'll scan you and make sure you're okay. And if you're not, then it'll set it off. Or you can stop and actually like pay attention if you want to know. But I just
yep.
it's one of those things that we didn't have that before. You,
But
you
here's the
know
thing. There's another thing about this movie that we are starting to see more and more of today. Remember, she was created from anatomy that was left behind of 400 years before
yeah,
Mhm.
it was the all she had was the
science.
hand that was left.
It was
Yeah.
just the hand, right?
So
Now,
basically, they 3D printed her. They used her DNA to 3D print her. They
I was thinking
just
cloning. I was
yeah.
thinking
Clone,
cloning, but
well, or
that
maybe it's a combination of the
It
two.
was
Clone
yeah,
DNA with
and then they
3D
used
printing.
because they took her DNA and mixed up a slurry and then printed her. Because I mean that
yeah,
was what it
Yeah,
is. We didn't even
yeah,
have 3D printing then, but that's what that was. They
yeah. That.
they
I'm telling you, that's it. And Nicole and I were watching the Orville this week, and the doctor, scanning, to
Mhm.
see how the injuries. That's not that different. When you get an MRI, what is it doing? It's scanning your
Yeah.
body.
Yep.
Mhm.
Or a CT
Mhm.
scan or any of these scans.
And
Mhm.
all of these
Mhm.
scans are
They're big.
invasive.
They're big and well, they're not invasive anymore. I mean, you have to lay in a tube, but sooner or later,
I
and
mean, invasive in
hopefully sooner,
the
they'll be more compact and more, you
yeah.
know,
Well,
everything because
when I say invasive, I mean that it's not compact. Sometimes you do need to get the dye, and so that it can see
yeah.
inside better, and things like that.
Well, I
So
mean,
it's not as simple as just being scanned,
because I
but
mean,
it's
look
getting
at
there.
when look at in the 50s, a computer took up an entire room. And
Hmm.
Yeah,
now you can hold
yeah.
one in the palm of your hand
In the
in
hand.
your phone and,
Yeah.
and all, even a laptop. It's like, what? This is, thinking back to, looking at where we were and where we are now, it's just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah. And did you
Mhm.
know, guys, a little tidbit of trivia that I learned this week that during the late 1800s, early 1900s, when the word computer was being used, it was being referenced to women who can calculate
Yes.
mathematically all day long. That's all they would do. It's a big
Yep.
board,
Computers were
I did
women.
not
Yeah.
know that.
Yep.
computer women,
I did
and
not know that.
yeah,
Yep.
well, we learning up in the sci-fi
Absolutely.
queens.
Yep. Yeah, because they
Any
used to
grown
when
women
they
gonna
like
win again?
You're gonna
well,
hire a
because they used to
computer.
have to do all these
That was the title.
calculations, for business and all sorts of things, and you'd have it wouldn't only be like the secretary pool, but like there was like
Mhm.
you get hired and that was your job, and you sit with a calculator or an abacus or whatever they were, or those weird, what I'm talking
But it
about.
was like they would
Um,
do
Mm,
like this giant chalkboards that was the size of a wall, and she's
yeah,
literally like on a step stool, practically
yep,
doing calculations all day, all day, all day, all day,
yep,
and she was referred to as computer.
a computer.
yep,
But if you
Yes,
yep.
pay attention to that, if you pay attention to that movie, oh, what's
Are
the
you
name of
thinking of
this?
Hidden Figures?
Yes, that was their title. She was a computer
Yeah,
yes,
because
because they're
we
computing
wouldn't have
the
gotten to the
numbers.
moon without their calculations.
that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hmm.
because they're computing numbers. So they were a
Yep.
computer. No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. But let's go on to the next character because we have to talk about Chris Tucker. I mean, we
Oh my
can't
boy.
not talk about Chris Tucker.
Do you
Okay.
understand the
And
words that are coming out of my mouth?
Ruby Road. Oh my Lord. He was hilarious. I sometimes I forget that was the part he played, because I've seen him, as a cop, as a comedian on Friday. I've seen his stand up, and it's
Mhm.
like this is the same guy. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
well, and
totally
he's like he
was.
just went wild with this role. It was he was just it was so uncharacteristic for him, and Ruby Rose was so I want to call it like not really non-binary, but more metrosexual, just like
Yes. Yes, what I
just
was going to
okay with
ask
it.
you, where would you place, in your opinion, Ruby Road? I thought it was more of a trans situation, but you're saying
That's
more
what I was thinking.
Well,
metrosexual?
nah, because he was still a he just was okay with flamboyant outfits
So maybe
and
non-binary.
well, I mean, because he was after the ladies. So
Yes, he was.
Yes, yes. So maybe non-binary.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you
But I
draw
thought he did
just
a fantastic job. I
oh
mean,
yes.
he's a great actor. I love his stuff.
You know
Absolutely.
what I thought? What I kept thinking was, if this movie was current and he played that character the way he played it, like, would he get canceled nowadays? I think he would have. I don't
I
You
think
think
know,
so.
that
I
I
you
don't
know,
think
and
they
that's
could have handled that role the way we appreciated it in this day and age.
I
right.
agree. You know why I agree? Because I think that they would have expected to hire someone who fit that mold, and
Yeah.
to be more specific as to what that person felt on as
Or
far as casting.
like what's his name? Billy, I can't remember what his last name is, but he always wears dresses to the Oscars and stuff, and to the, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
they're my boy.
No,
Oh,
he's
that's my boy.
Billy
he's
Eilish.
Billy
in the
Porter.
no,
Billy
it's not
Porter. No,
her.
Billy Porter.
Yeah,
Billy
him.
Porter.
And then or like Little Nas X or something like that. Because he would
Yes,
have been good in that role too, I think.
Yes.
And
And
exactly.
there's a hint of and I think the issue would have been a hint of authenticity. Like, as
Yes.
like was
mhm,
he did he make a caricature of that character?
right. And that might have been part of the comedy too, is that, like
Correct.
take everything that you know about like talk show hosts and radio hosts, because it was radio, so like they
Yes.
weren't but they was like it was so I mean it was kind of like a podcast, because they did have on screen, but they were also radio. So I mean it was just different. I mean, at the
He was
time we'd never
definitely
heard of that.
what we would consider a television personality.
Yes.
Yes.
And he
But
almost
even a radio personality. We had radio
having
personalities back then.
Absolutely.
having just like he kind of gave me shock jock vibes, like
Yes.
Howard
Yeah, he
Stern.
was definitely
And then,
shocked.
Yes.
but also because I just watched the Hunger Games prequel, it's like those those TV hosts that they had that were hosting the Hunger Games. He kind of
Yes.
gave me those kind of vibes, but not like as cruel. Does that make sense? But just kind of in that same genre. And then it kind of made me wonder because this was so old. Did they maybe base those characters on him? Like,
Mm,
It's
mm,
possible.
mm,
It's possible.
yeah,
One thing that we need to definitely keep in mind when watching these movies from the 80s and 90s and even 2000s is that the level of sensitivity
it's
to
different.
particular groups was a lot
yeah,
different. People didn't really give too much credence to let's be sensitive. Like Star Trek
yeah,
Discovery, oh my God, the representation was seamless, was beautiful.
yeah,
There was no group that was not represented.
right.
Okay, even Puerto Ricans and Puerto Rican food, which is not something you really see. You see more Mexican and Mexican culture
Hmm.
when it comes to Latino, which is totally fine. It's beautiful, but you don't see it.
You don't see
That was even
the
represented in
subgroups
Star Trek
usually. Yeah,
Discovery.
Right.
yes,
Okay, I mean, and I love the representation, like all the way around the way. Um, Doc Colbert's mother, grandmother, who, he's the one
yeah.
that's Puerto Rican, and
His
he,
abuela. Yeah.
yeah, his abuela, he would think about her, and they would show like flashes of him talking to her,
Well,
making
he
him
even
smile,
he
making food
even
that was
made
cultural
an AI hologram of her so
of
he could
her.
ask her questions and
Yeah.
like had Zora take like all his memories and all the
Hmm.
actual data of her and then create an interactive AI
Yes.
hologram so that he could
Yes.
sound off with his abuela. And that was kind of like,
Exactly.
oh,
And these so no one represents better than Star Trek Discovery.
right.
But it wasn't representation was not the focus with these
Hmm.
movies in the 80s and 90s. It really truly wasn't. Should
It's
it
not.
have been? Sure. Was it? No. We can't go backwards. We could only go
Right.
forward. I think that
Right.
going forward, I think science fiction has grown. I think science
Hmm.
fiction has been more inclusive, has been more open. It has always been what's called woke. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
It's always been in the forefront of what's happening politically, what's happening socially and
Well,
economically. Always has.
even when Agnog, the head whatever they are, the weird lizard people. When he came
Hmm.
in and he had that human face on, and Gary Oldman, told him that he's like, what are you wearing that for? You should never be ashamed to be yourself. And like, just he's
Yes.
like, it's ugly, take it off, and just kind
Yes.
of like
I
blunt,
thought
but
that
like you should
sentence
Right.
be
was so
yourself. And I was like, that's some kind of good advice. I mean, that was
yes.
before its time too.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. It's science fiction has always addressed, even if in a small way, some
Hmm.
current issue. And in the 90s, being yourself and
Was
accepting
all
yourself
about it.
as
Yeah.
something was really beginning to fire up in the 90s
Yep.
Hmm.
in people. And I think that they were sort of quietly addressing that in that sentence. And I think
Hmm.
Hmm.
that that was important to note. Um,
Hmm.
we're going to go take a bit of a commercial break and then we're going to come back and Sarah's going to give us an amazing
Yes.
scientist. Take it away, Sarah.
Hello. Tonight we have Heather Knight. In her own words, Heather Knight is a senior archaeologist at the Museum of London Archaeology, also known as MOLA, and she has a penchant for playhouses of the 16th century London. Heather was involved in the excavations of the Theatre and the Curtain, two 16th century Elizabethan playhouses in Shoreditch, England, where many of Shakespeare's early plays were performed. The main excavation of the Curtain Playhouse, the venue for Shakespeare's original Romeo and Juliet, took place in 2016, and the post excavation analysis is ongoing. The results of the excavation are already contributing enormously to researching the origin of English drama. Heather is a member of the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists and has been a senior archaeologist with MOLA since 1995. Other, Over that time, Heather has focused on the archaeology of medieval and post-medieval urban development in Greater London, with a particular emphasis on theatre archaeology. Heather is also a member of the advisory board for Before Shakespeare, a multidisciplinary research project focusing on early modern drama and the first 30 years of London commercial playhouses. It's like way back in the day. Heather Knight has more recently been working on an excavation and the archaeological finds at the Boar's Head Theatre in Whitechapel, England. When asked what the best piece of advice she has ever been given, Heather said, the senior archaeologist on the first dig site she ever worked on told her, archaeology wouldn't make her a fortune, but it'd certainly be rewarding and enrich her in other ways.
Absolutely beautiful. And this is her social media.
Yeah, and then if you search on YouTube too, you can find her. She has a lot of speaking engagements where she talks about, she doesn't have her own channel, but she has a lot of speaking engagements where she does shows and she talks about what they've been finding.
And this is so relevant because the movie we've been talking about, it really is about archaeology. That's how it began.
Yep, that's where we got her. Yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
absolutely.
With Luke Perry.
I know.
Right, I saw
Yeah,
that.
he's such a baby. I was like, oh, I know.
Archaeologists. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Vicar of Dublin. The head archaeologist.
Yes.
In that show.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
he's
Yeah.
a really funny guy. He's super funny. Even though he's
Aziz, lights.
comedic, level. I loved how everything was happening around him and he was so oblivious.
Focused on what he was doing, like not even.
Absolutely.
Hornbees was like falling apart from like heat exhaustion. He's like, lights, lights.
Aziz, lights.
Absolutely.
And he's all and Luke Perry's character's like, here, let me just make sure to tally it every time he said Aziz, lights. Well, and
Yes.
that's kind of cool because it kind of shows you how old and how things were done, like using a piece of metal to reflect the light like that, like a polished pan. That was interesting. It was like,
But it,
okay.
but it also like put into like for me that question of like, if there are like the whole idea of extraterrestrial beings coming down as early
Yeah.
as like the turn of the century, like
Yes.
when we didn't even have like technology, we didn't even have planes, and there were
Right.
no indoor lights, and here comes these beings that are like probably can be
Super
our
advanced.
technology.
Yep.
Yeah, coming down and like
Yup. But I enjoyed the movie. I definitely give it I would give it a 4 out of 5. What do you give it, Sarah?
Well, it's one of my favorites, so it's always going to be a 5 out of 5 because it's just
How about
it's
you,
because
Nicole?
I'm gonna be the odd man out here and say like maybe a 2 or 3.
Okay,
Like,
okay, we can
that's
respect
all
that.
right.
That's all
Yeah.
But
right.
I
I'll be
also
doing it.
respect that it's cheesy and hokey and fun. So
yes,
looking at it as just a sci-fi movie, yeah, I agree with Nicole. But you also throw in the comedy,
I think that's
and
what it was. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like if you look at it as sci-fi comedy, then it's a little bit more because
Exactly.
it's not. It is definitely not serious sci-fi, but I still love it. It has I watched it when it first came out and just like fell in love because it was so different. And you can also, in the movie, you can see the bright colors of the time were reflected in, because that's when we were into the neons. And so,
yes.
Bruce Willis is wearing bright colored clothes and she's got bright colored clothes and those orange rubber suspenders. And it's just like,
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, it's a lot of the stuff from the times bleeds into it, even though it's futuristic. You know, it's good. Anyways, sorry.
Absolutely. We're gonna go move on to our next segment with
Mhm.
sci-fi book recommendation. Okay, guys, do you know I love
Ooh,
this segment? I had such a good time reading this book. Let me tell you, I wrote down my thoughts, but I may deviate from what's there. It is called Rust Colored Rain by Otto Schaefer. It is the first book of a trilogy. The second one, I believe, comes out this month. Okay. It starts with the main characters and their daily lives, issues, and seemingly normal life confronted with the usual issues couples have. This is couple, and then a little bit of marital issues going on. When all of a sudden, an announcement from the U.S. government over all radio and television outlets that a meteor is coming towards Earth, but they already have a plan to deviate its trajectory away from Earth. Although the government never says how, it speculated by one of the main characters that nuclear warheads are going to be used. This will begin the start of an apocalyptic event. Rust colored rain starts to fall, and everyone exposed to the rain eventually changes. And people start to crave eating
flesh.
other humans, and
Mm.
stopping them is nearly impossible. Okay, and I need to interject before I continue reading my notes. I love the progress in this book. Usually when you have a trilogy, the first book is really introducing characters and situations, and it's not as intense or as good. Usually you're like, oh yeah, that second book was better than the first, because no one really gives the level of
Y-
credit that it takes to create that first book. And let me tell you,
Yeah, that
the
world building is important.
character. Yes,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Otto Schaefer creates a world, okay, in this
Mhm.
first book that is so good, intensely good. And he just really dives into the characters, and the growth of these characters is so written, okay? And the progress from human to zombie is slow, and you see it happening in this book, okay? This book is witty, realistic, and passionate, with passionate characters. Okay.
Okay.
The characters are realistically written and very relatable. The book aims to give us the before the fall of humanity account, and it accomplishes this goal perfectly. Absolutely great. It has drama and excellently described scenes that you can visualize. I love it when a book is written in such a way that if you close your eyes, you can see it happening. And this is something this book accomplishes. Okay, this author has definitely hit the mark with a first book, this trilogy. This book delivers an incredible introduction to the trilogy. I highly recommend it. I got it off the TikTok shop, and if you get it off the TikTok shop, it comes signed. But I believe you can get it from Amazon and other medias of where books are bought. This is his social media platform. Please give him a
Mhm.
follow, because book two will be releasing soon. And you definitely want to go to his website, sign up for his newsletter, so you are get all the
Informed.
alerts.
Yep.
Yes, keep informed. He is so fantastic. I absolutely love this book. Definitely recommend this book. Um,
It
it's
sounds
Hey, Nisha, do
interesting.
you know if
it's
it's
You've got my interest. You've got my
right?
interest. I'm like,
Do you
wait,
know
what?
if it's on Audible?
I don't know, but I can definitely check. I don't
There's
know.
just some people who just rather listen.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, he might, because he's actually an established author. He's written quite a few other books. This is my first experience with his writing. And let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you something. I know that with um, uh, Matt and Lauren's book, I said it's got to become a movie, and I stand by that. However, with this book, I don't know that I want this book to be a movie. Let me tell you why.
It needs to be a
Really?
show.
Let me explain to this. No, not a show either. Let me explain why. Inside, because I'm a big zombie fan. Okay, if there's a zombie
Mhm.
movie, a zombie TV show, I've probably seen every single one of them. Okay, and one thing I love, he makes mention of Night of the Living Dead in the book, and it happened. And I love that. That's my favorite
Oh
movie.
my.
My favorite sci-fi. Okay, so I feel so connected to this author, and the reason I don't want it to be a movie is because when you create a movie, you can't give the level of context and history and
Mhm.
Mhm.
story that this book gives you, which is essential when you're reading a book.
Yes.
But you can't do that because then the movie becomes a 6 hour movie, you know, or you have to
The
do it.
extended edition.
Exactly. Like when you read The Hunger Games, the book really gives you the history, a little bit more of the history.
Yeah,
While you're
of what's
seeing
going
it
on.
unfold in the movie, in the book,
You
it's
just kind of
more
dumped in it.
understandable.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
Mm.
if you read the comics of the Walking Dead versus watching the TV show, you'll
Mhm.
get more context out of those comics
Mhm.
because you're able
Mhm.
Right.
to write more than you are to visually see it. And I understand.
Right. And you can, and when you're writing or even in the comics, you can put what people are thinking. And that's always been one of my things that
Exactly.
I have a problem with when they go from page to screen is that you lose all that. So you lose
Yeah.
all those inner monologues and,
and
uh,
I and
you
I
know,
do respect the process. I truly do. But
yep.
I love this book. This book was written so well and so vivid that I don't want to lose that. I don't want people to lose seeing that in their mind's eye. The imagination is sparked by this book. It is very well written and it is an easy read. Like I would start reading and I could not put this down. And I'm like, okay, I gotta put this down. I gotta do other stuff.
Well, and if
But
it's,
I loved it.
and Nicole, if it's available as an ebook, if you have I don't want to say her name because she's right there, the Alexa, you can ask her to read you the book if you have it as an ebook, and she'll read it to you. It's very monotone, but it's another option
I
for
haven't done that
accessibility.
one yet.
Because we've had, like Leah's had struggled with reading some things sometimes, and we've been able to have we buy the ebook and then have her read it. I mean, it's very flat and monotone because it's not like an Audible where they actually
Right.
like
Right.
give the
Right.
inflection,
And
but
just to give a
it's
little
still
context, she can't say
going in.
Alexa in her house because Alexa starts
No,
speaking.
I get that. No, I know that's
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah.
you spelled it out. I get that.
But
No.
that's something that I discovered because of my ADHD. I have a hard time sitting down and reading sometimes, but I can listen to things while I'm working or
Right.
doing other things and
Well,
keeping my hands busy.
for
So
me, I love reading, and I don't mind reading, and I could eat up a book. But I love both, and I have e-readers. I love physical books,
yeah,
but the
I've got an
Audible, like I'm on the subways. I go to work. Like it's just
yeah.
easier for me
Yeah,
to,
it
Yeah,
and I
no,
can
no, no,
read
and
while
then and
I'm doing
everybody's
cooking
got
too.
everybody's got their thing. It's like I've got an audio. I'm gonna say it's not an audio book because there's no book available, but it's like an audio drama that I've been
Mm.
listening to. I'm on chapter like 615 of like 1,000. We only get you can only like unlock 10 chapters a day or something. They're like 10 minutes a piece, but it's entertaining and it
Mhm.
still makes you think and it keeps me busy while I'm doing other stuff. And
Right.
I've been more productive. So, you know,
but definitely, guys, if you
yeah,
get an opportunity to read this book,
I'm
Rust
gonna add it to my
Coin
to read.
by
Yeah,
Otto Schaefer.
Auto
Super
Schaefer.
nice
Okay.
guy. I've been communicating with him through TikTok. He's a super nice guy, and his
Okay.
writing is excellent. And let me tell you, when he sent me that package, the package was so beautifully packaged, and
Hmm.
he really took time and care to send it, and I really appreciated that. But we're gonna move
That's
on
good.
to our next segment,
Yep.
podcast recommendation. All right, guys. Now we've got I'm recycling these podcasts because
Yep.
the list was getting really big. But you will always find it in the description. All of
Yes.
the podcasts that we have recommended. We're gonna start with the Geekish Network. It's called Trek Table. They are fantastic. Definitely take a look at them. If you know Claudia Alec, she is part of the Trek Table. They talk about Star
Yes.
Trek, TV shows, movies, and they are fantastic. And we have I on Sci-Fi Podcast. They cover an awesome indie sci-fi short films, web series, and related media. They do interviews of creators and behind the scenes of sci-fis as well. So definitely take a look at his podcast. He's really good, and you can really learn a lot from him. And this one here, it's my most recent one.
Yeah.
This is my Trek Talk people. I gotta support them. Okay, another freaking podcast. That's what it's called. It is three Trek Talkers who decided to start a podcast about Star Trek.
Okay.
And they are brand new. Very few subscribers, so I'm asking you guys, go subscribe, go take a listen. They got one or two. They have one already audio there, and I believe Saturday or Sunday, they're gonna be doing another one. So definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell for them. They're really actually a lot of fun to listen to. One of
And
them,
do they talk about anything in any Star Trek in general, or is it specific?
well, the first episode they had just talking about they do not just Star Trek but all science fiction actually,
Okay.
because they even talked about Battlestar Babylon
Okay.
5. Babylon 5, which I've started to watch. I actually never watched it before. But
Yeah.
we actually have one of the individuals that is on there, Karen Nordine. She's the author. We've had her on our podcast.
Okay.
And Joseph will be joining us, not in our next podcast, but the podcast after that.
Okay.
And when we talk about, well, we're going to save that for when that comes up. But he'll be joining us in a couple of weeks to um, talk about some more sci-fi. And our next show, guys, is going to be a little bit different.
You okay?
Okay, we're having a special episode called What's Next in Sci-Fi Coming Attractions with Tiffany. Now, Tiffany does fantastic reviews of all TV series of all different streaming services for all different types of movies, not just science fiction. So if go definitely follow her on TikTok if you want to know more about shows. But on July 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, she's going to come on the show and tell us all the updates on the next sci-fi coming attractions, okay? And she is going to talk to us about all the different sci-fis that are going on, which ones are canceled, which ones have been renewed, what we should be expecting, all of these wonderful things. She is fantastic. So we're not going to have a scientist or book recommendation on this episode because I really want to focus on giving you guys a science-fi update and coming
Yes.
attractions of the TV shows that are out there. And this is just going to be just us talking about those coming attractions, asking questions, and just kind of seeing what's happening in science-fi. I've actually learned a lot of shows from her. She got me all kind of messed up watching shows while I'm
Hmm.
trying. She does. They're so good. She is so good at reviews that she makes you want to watch them. Um,
That's good.
and yeah, absolutely. So I've definitely learned a lot from watching her reviews. So guys, come along on July 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But before we close up, I did want to ask if Sarah or Nicole have any last minute thoughts or anything they want to share.
Thank you for coming again, Nicole.
Oh, thank you for
Yes, we
having
love
me,
having
ladies.
you.
I love coming. Can't wait for the next time.
Yes, we love having you. and steering you into our cult.
Okay, so this was an okay movie pick, though, right? It wasn't a bad one like
Yes.
the last couple.
No. You know, it's official. You are the movie picker in this.
Okay.
You have good taste. You know, you
Oh,
got
good.
good taste. I would have never thought to pick this movie, which is kind of sad because I like this movie.
Yeah,
But it just never
yeah.
occurred to me. So it's really good to have Sarah pick these movies for us.
Yay.
Guys, join us on July 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time so you can be updated on what's next in sci-fi. So you guys have a good night. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our new channel so that you can get notified when new videos come up. Thank you for watching our show.